I'm Katie Couric. Houston, we have a drinking problem. Allegations of heavy drinking by astronauts before missions in yet another embarrassment for the space agency. Also tonight, a new warning about a health risk for people who take a popular diabetes drug. Tough times for home sellers. She figures she'll make out better selling on her own and saving the broker's fee.
We figured it's about $70,000.
And Steve Hartman's Assignment America, the story of a boy and his vacuums.
It is literally in mint condition.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. More trouble for NASA tonight. An independent panel is suggesting that astronauts may have flown drunk. The panel's report tells of heavy drinking just before missions. It says that NASA's not set up to deal with such alcohol abuse and that flight surgeons who theoretically could ground astronauts who've been drinking are often ignored. Our national correspondent Byron Pitts begins our coverage.
Does NASA have a problem? It's a question being asked again. In this 12-page report by an independent panel, there were no dates, no details, no names, but still damaging allegations that on at least 2 different occasions, NASA allowed astronauts to fly drunk. Quote, astronauts had been so intoxicated prior to flight that flight surgeons and/or fellow astronauts raised concerns to local on-scene leadership regarding flight safety.
We will act immediately on the more troubling aspects of this report with respect to alcohol use.
And liftoff.
Unknown is whether the alleged incidents may have occurred aboard a shuttle mission, a T-38 training flight, or a Russian Soyuz mission. The panel's chairman, Air Force Colonel Richard Bachman Jr., was not present at today's news briefing, but spoke by telephone.
We don't have enough data to call it alcohol abuse. We have no way of knowing if these are the only 2 incidents that have ever occurred in the history of the astronaut corps, or if they are the tip of a very large iceberg.
Astronaut Mark Polanski has flown 2 shuttle missions. He says no way.
Certainly the night before launch, the last thing you're thinking about is, getting hammered, and so you're probably having very little, if any, alcohol.
It was the arrest of NASA astronaut Lisa Nowak on alleged kidnapping charges that prompted the investigation. This charge of intoxicated astronauts comes just after revelations a Texas-based company supplied a sabotaged computer that was to fly aboard Shuttle Endeavour next month.
This is not a very good week for NASA.
NASA historian Howard McCurdy says today's announcement is alarming if it's true.
Well, the general public has a reason to be concerned because it resembles some of the decision processes that led up to the Challenger and the Columbia accidents.
NASA's first order of business now, determining if today's allegations are in fact true. Byron Pitts, CBS News, New York.
Bill Harwood is our CBS News space analyst. Bill, if the allegations of inebriated astronauts turn out to be true, do you think these are isolated incidents or emblematic of a widespread problem in NASA?
Katie, I've covered the space program for more than 20 years, and I have to believe these are isolated incidents. I've never heard even a whisper of this kind of behavior during a shuttle launch countdown, and certainly not a case of an inebriated astronaut actually getting on a space shuttle. But the problem here is that this report is based on unverified allegations, and until NASA can go carry out the kind of extensive review needed to pin this down, it's really impossible to say whether they're widespread or isolated.
I'm sure you've spoken to some high-level officials at NASA about this. How are they feeling about the space program and about all this unwanted attention?
After the Columbia accident, Katie, everything's been down for so long while they recovered from that disaster. They're just now ramping back up again. They've got the technical problems, it seems, behind them, and they're really ready for this big push to finish the International Space Station. They're very focused on that. And these concerns about alcohol abuse in the astronaut office, the Lisa Nowak affair, are major distractions. I think they're all very, very disappointed that they're not able to enjoy this moment they've worked so hard to get to, the resumption of routine shuttle operations, and instead are having to fend off a lot of really crazy stories.
Bill Harwood. Bill, thanks so much. Meanwhile, Wall Street investors may be seeing stars after the beating they took this week. The Dow had another big loss today, more than 200 points. For the week, the Dow gave up nearly 600 points, or about 4.25%. Its worst week in 5 years. Here's Kelly Wallace.
After
After a week of being pounded by bad news, the market couldn't even accept good news. Better than expected economic growth for the second quarter, touted by President Bush.
It's an economy that is large, flexible, and resilient.
And still, stocks tumbled. Despite the Wall Street roller coaster, investors like Mary Ellen Scott are not concerned.
Well, I've been in it long enough to see it go up and go down and come back, so that's what I'm thinking it's going to do.
History is on her side. From 1985 to 2006, the Dow grew an average of 8.6% per year. If you invested $1,000 back then, you'd have over $15,000 today.
Are the phones ringing off the hook? Surprisingly, no.
Alice Zollman, a Charles Schwab financial consultant, says she tells her clients to think long-term and not to panic by short-term swings like we saw this week.
But ultimately, I think the most important point is to understand that investing is a lot like the weather. We can't predict the weather. We can't control the weather. The only thing that we can do is prepare for it. And investing is really no different.
After a turbulent week, the market can now catch its breath for a few days. The next big economic report, which could determine whether Wall Street continues its wild ride, is the unemployment rate. And Katie, that comes out next Friday.
All right, Kelly Wallace. Kelly, thank you. To health news now. There are new questions tonight about the safety of a popular diabetes drug, Avandia. The Food and Drug Administration will soon be considering whether to require tougher warning labels or pull the drug entirely. Here's Nancy Cordes.
Up until now, the FDA had maintained that safety data on the blockbuster diabetes drug Avandia was inconclusive. But in a new report, FDA reviewers now warn current available information points to an increased risk of cardiovascular adverse effects, including heart failure and cardiovascular death in diabetic patients.
Managing type 2 diabetes can be hard. Adding Avandia can help.
Avandia, the nation's #1 diabetes drug, is taken by 1 million Americans. But in May, the same doctor whose research got the arthritis drug Vioxx yanked raised the red flag on Avandia, reporting in the New England Journal of Medicine that the drug increases the risk of heart attack by 43%.
The problem is clearly there, and the question is, do the benefits of the drug outweigh these risks? And if so, then what kinds of warnings should be placed?
That's what an FDA advisory panel will determine on Monday. It could even recommend pulling the drug from the market.
Once we have that data, we'll advise the American people and their physicians with regard to the appropriate use of Avandia.
Drug maker GlaxoSmithKline says its analysis of the data has always shown that Avandia is perfectly safe.
It's a very important option, and there's no reason that it should be withdrawn from the market at this time.
If the FDA does take action on Avandia, it will have some explaining to do about why it initially downplayed concerns about the drug. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Washington.
Now to the health of the Vice President. Dick Cheney will have minor surgery tomorrow to replace the heart defibrillator in his chest. The device was implanted 6 years ago and the battery is running down. In other news today, Congress sent President Bush an anti-terrorism bill. It implements most of the recommendations made by the 9/11 Commission 3 years ago. Security money will be shifted to high-risk cities, and it will beef up the screening of air and sea cargo. The bill passed overwhelmingly in both houses, and the White House says the president will sign it. Now a correction. In our report last night on the friendly fire death of Pat Tillman and the Army cover-up, we told you that one of the officers expected to be punished is Brigadier General Gary Jones. This is his picture, General Gary M. Jones. Unfortunately, the picture we used last night was of Brigadier General Gary Lee Jones. Gary Lee Jones has nothing to do with the Tillman case, and CBS News sincerely regrets the error. There is much more CBS News ahead, including Steve Hartman's Assignment America. Dust and crumbs don't stand a chance with this boy around. But up next, the competition for home sellers is about as tough as it's ever been. Are you better off using a broker or selling it yourself? If you want to make money in the slumping housing market, you might try selling for sale signs. According to the latest figures tonight, more than 4 million Americans are trying to sell a home. That's close to an all-time record. Last year, it took about 6 weeks to sell a home. Now, it's 8 to 10. And with prices falling, a lot of homeowners are wondering whether they should skip the broker, save the commission, and try selling on their own. Sandra Hughes concludes our series, Real Estate, Real Solutions.
When it came time to sell the Los Angeles home where Judy Rydell grew up,
Typical Spanish patio.
she decided there was no one better than herself to market its 1920s charm.
We are prepared to have open houses every Saturday and Sunday.
Rydell hoped for a quick sale even with a $1.4 million asking price and without using a professional realtor.
We feel we can do all the things that a selling agent would do. So we're doing it.
With a lot of sweat equity. To price it, Rydell had to size up the home's features and research comparable sales in her neighborhood. Then she had to advertise, listing her house on one of many for sale by owner websites.
How much money are you saving by not using a realtor?
Well, we figured it's about $70,000.
A recent study conducted in the Midwest may prove Rydell right. Economists looking at the Madison, Wisconsin housing market found homes sold by owner on a local website went for about the same amount as those sold by realtors. But realtors insist it's not a nationwide trend. In 2005, the National Association of Realtors did their own survey of home sellers and found realtors boosted home sale prices by 16%. Los Angeles realtor Sharona Alperin says it's a combination of contacts, negotiating skills, and marketing savvy.
We come in with ideas that really help generate a higher number as far as price.
But realtors typically take a 6% commission, which can add up to tens of thousands of dollars. So are the savings worth your effort? Here's what to consider. Price. Can you negotiate the best price for your home? Property showings. Do you have the time? Advertising costs. They can add up if your house doesn't sell. And finally, the sale. You'll need to handle the closing requirements like inspections, appraisals, and contract terms.
It has the pedestal sinks.
Like many homeowners, Judy Rydell is willing to do whatever it takes. But she's selling in the middle of LA's biggest sales slump in 14 years. Now, after 6 weeks of open houses,
So I've maintained the original charm in every way.
and an $80,000 price cut, she's had no offers.
I'm just hoping the right buyer comes along soon.
Or she may give up and replace these signs with a realtor's. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And if you missed part of this series or would like to see it again, you can go to cbsnews.com and click on Real Estate, Real Solutions. In other news now, Nike today suspended its contract with Atlanta Falcons quarterback Michael Vick, who faces federal dogfighting charges. Vick pleaded not guilty yesterday. Nike plans to pull merchandise bearing his name from all of its store shelves. And Reebok, meanwhile, says it plans to stop selling Vick's replica jersey. The Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight that Rupert Murdoch's bid to buy the paper has hit a snag. A branch of the Bancroft family, which controls the paper's publisher, says it will vote against the deal. According to the Journal, Bancrofts want Murdoch to raise his $5 billion offer, something Murdoch has indicated he will not do. In Denver today, the former CEO of Quest Communications wept as he was sentenced to 6 years in prison for insider trading. Joe Naccio was convicted of making $52 million in illegal stock sales. He'll also have to give back the money and pay a $19 million fine. When we come back, you may be surprised when you hear where some bottled water really comes from. Aquafina, it sounds so nice, so refined, so special. You might think this biggest selling brand of bottled water must come from someplace special. Well, today we found out it doesn't. Here's Richard Schlesinger.
Even the most cynical among us would like to think the bottled water we drink comes from a place like this.
Hopefully a natural spring somewhere in France.
Since a bottle of water costs more than the same amount of gasoline, it would be nice if it came from someplace special.
Oh yeah, an iceberg in Antarctica.
Still, there are those who long suspected some bottled water was just tap water, and now there is no more doubt. Today, PepsiCo, which owns Aquafina, started labeling its source as PWS, which stands for Public Water Source. Tap water, purified, yes, but from a pipe, not a stream.
I mean, it says pure water. That's not pure water at all. It's coming from a tap, just like any other water I get out of the sink.
But the bottled water industry was eager to point out that its product is much more than just tap water in a bottle, even if it does originate from a tap.
There's reverse osmosis, there's deionization, distillation, ozonation. All of those steps go into making that bottled water product what it is when it gets to the consumer.
Pepsi says their new label just helps clarify the source of their water.
For us, not a bottled water versus tap water issue. And if people are drinking water, that's a good thing.
But this is a $15 billion a year industry, and it's already come under attack for wasting energy and creating a tsunami of discarded plastic bottles. And this latest wave of attention might make it more difficult to promote bottled water. After all, what sounds better? Drinking water drawn from a mountain stream, or water that's been forced through reverse osmosis, deionization, and ozonation? Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, New York.
Meanwhile, tragedy in the skies over Phoenix today. 2 news helicopters collided while covering a police pursuit on live TV. Both choppers went down in a park in central Phoenix and caught fire. Each carried a pilot and photographer, 4 people in all. Police say there were no survivors. Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, a lot of guys remember their first car. Well, this young man will always remember his first vacuum cleaner. Assignment America is next. 100 years ago this year, a department store janitor named Murray Spangler took a tin soapbox, a fan, a pillowcase, and a broom handle and invented what he called the suction sweeper. The vacuum cleaner was born, and soon every kid wanted one. Well, that's not quite true. Not every kid, just one. The kid in Steve Hartman's Assignment America.
To most 12-year-old kids, vacuuming is about as appealing as algebra. But to Kyle Critchbaum of Adrian, Michigan, it's pure joy.
It's kind of like people who like football or baseball. People like baseball better than football.
You like vacuums better than
everything.
Kyle's mom says the fire's been burning in this kid since before he could say Hoover.
When Kyle was a baby in his little baby seat and I'd be vacuuming, he would just be mesmerized by the vacuum, and he'd follow it everywhere.
Kyle got his first vacuum at age 1, dressed up as a dirt devil for Halloween at age 2, and as his former teacher recalls, was vacuuming during school recess at age 6.
He would go down, get the school vacuum, and actually one day vacuum one side of the room, the next day vacuum the other side of the room, also vacuum the principal's office, anywhere he could vacuum.
Today he has 165 vacuums, and he uses almost all of them, vacuuming his own house up to 5 times a day.
I have to admit, this is one of my favorites. It is literally in mint condition. It's very pretty how the bag is like that shape. It's a slow starter, but it still runs perfect.
His sweepers fill up almost every room in the house, with one exception, his older sisters.
Well, he's constantly vacuuming, that's all I hear, and it's always loud in my house. I'm just like, why? Why? I don't understand.
Do you remember what it was?
Kyle is so obsessed, he had me call my parents to find out what vacuum I grew up with.
They had a JCPenney at one time.
A Pencrest.
Apparently, this particular Pencrest is really rare. Only one other is known to exist.
What'd you do with it? You threw it out?
There went $2,000. But Kyle's making plenty of pocket change, repairing neighbors' vacuums and cleaning their carpets.
Did it survive?
Of course, everything he makes goes into buying more vacuums.
When is enough enough?
My parents say that all the time. When I go off to college, my parents say that they're going to have a big vacuum sale.
Kyle's now intent on creating the first soundless vacuum. So let's hope Mom and Dad let him keep it up for the sake of older sisters everywhere.
And I see that he made you take your shoes off, right? So you wouldn't track in any dirt.
No, I did that on my...
He must like that, though,
no,
right?
I did that on my own, figuring, he would like me to track in dirt so he could vacuum 6 times a day.
Wow. And
Yeah.
he wants to continue to pursue this.
Yes, yes. And his friends tease him, but he doesn't care. This is his passion. He's going to pursue it, which I like that.
He's a self-confident guy. Meanwhile, tell us about our choices for next week.
All right. As always, we have 3 choices. First, the Rose Man, an 85-year-old Floridian who goes around giving away roses to anybody and everybody. Want to know why? Or talk about running around in circles. These people have been running around the same block in Queens, New York for the past month. Some 4,500 laps. Why? Or finally, if Stanley Segella has a death wish, no one's listening. After 50 years of aerobatic flying, he's still up there and a little bit out there. To vote for which one of those 3 stories you most want to see, go right now to cbsnews.com and click on Assignment America. The story with the most votes plays right here next Friday.
Tonight's Assignment America segment is sponsored by ExxonMobil, taking on the world's toughest energy challenges.
And that is the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric in New York. Thanks for joining us this week. I'll see you again on Monday. Till then, have a great weekend and good night.
How much tuna is safe to eat? The answer's tomorrow on the Saturday Early Show. CBS News. Experience you can trust.